Sick.
Passe ma tama.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we give the others just 2 minutes and then we'll commence with today's session? Just 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So they remain in your account until such time as an owner informs you that, or us, that there's an amount that is due and owing to them and is able to provide proof of payment for those values. If we move then into your income statement,
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. This time is not on our side. I'd like to take this opportunity to greet everyone. I know that you guys are coming from work and some of us are parents. We won't take much of your time. It will be exactly 1 hour at 7 p.m. or 19 p.m. We'll be ending the session. So I would just like to greet you all and thank you for making this taking this opportunity to attend our first masterclass. So briefly, I just want to introduce myself, and then I'll introduce our main speaker, Janine Tiki, who will be taking us through today's masterclass. She'll take about 40 minutes, and then we'll allow just 10 minutes of Q&A. And then yeah, that would be it. I would just ask if we could just mute our mics. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So my name is Dumisani Mvuyane, and I am the acting CEO of the association. So basically, my mandate is just to create more systems, especially support systems. So, if we could just please mute our mics. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so basically to create more engagement with the members, create more networking sessions, supporting structures, and so on. So we are aware that Directors Association, we have a fantastic program. It's just that maybe some of you guys will notice that after the training, it was a bit quiet in terms of engagement. So the board have decided that to put someone strictly who will be mainly focused on the members to create more engaging, more systems in place. So basically, just to run you through, guys, in terms of what the association has planned for the year. So we have planned to have one face-to-face event, which will take some time. I think it will be in November. We're still in communication with our sponsors. But in the interim, there's going to be a lot of master classes such as these ones, a lot of webinars, a lot of dialogues, and so on. So it's going to be a lot of engagement. So as the association, we're doing a lot of restructuring and creating more systems and support structure for you guys. So without wasting any time, I'll just take this opportunity to introduce Janine Tiki. I think the purpose of this masterclass and something that we have been engaged with some of the members is that we have discovered that as much as we have so many talented and intelligent and educated members, most of us are failing to package ourselves and to sell ourselves to the market. You have your degrees, you have your experience. Now we've decided to bring someone who is an expert when it comes to, branding yourself, packaging yourself, and putting yourself in a better position in terms of being nominated as an executive or a director. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker, Janine. So Janine basically she's an executive search specialist, also a talent specialist. She's been in the industry for over 27 years. She has placed so many C-suite or chiefs or directors in various organizations. Some are listed, some are private, some it's NGOs. So she is an expert. So she'll be taking us through the process of interviewing, packaging yourself, how to prepare for an interview, how to structure your CV, and so on. Janine, over to you. We'll give the platform to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Dumisani. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I feel extremely honored and thankful to Dumisani and the leadership of Directors Association to be able to have this platform to share with you something that is very, very close to my heart. I interview all day long. I have been recruiting for 27 years. I'm based in Port Elizabeth, but we have a national footprint. We have an African footprint. So what I will talk to you about today, and I'd like you to really take time to think about what I'm saying and how it resonates to you personally. This is very, very valuable information, and I see so many candidates getting it wrong, getting it partly right, and many come back to me and say, I've got the CV, I'm applying for all these jobs, I've sent out over 20 applications this week, and I'm just not getting noticed. I think that's the biggest thing that we have, the biggest problem that we have today. So I'd like to invite you to, if you've got your CV at hand, we're going to talk about that document, we're going to talk about preparation for interview. But pull up a notepad, pull up a glass of water, have your CV at hand, and listen with a critical ear. And I want to just leave you with this thought. This hour, this little bit of time that we have together, is the start of your journey and of your investment in yourself. Because this is going to take time, it's going to take homework from your side. Finding a job is not as easy anymore as having a CV, applying for a job via the internet and waiting for a callback. All right, we are dealing in this fourth industrial revolution with something called artificial intelligence and algorithms, and they affect the way that we are picked up in the market, the way that we are differentiated in the market. And some of you today, we're all educated people on this platform. Some of you may or may not have heard or seen or been at the receiving end of the algorithms and of the job hunting process. So some of you might walk away from this and think, oh my word, I'm so far behind. And some of you might have already done some due diligence and think to yourselves, okay, I'm not so bad, but maybe there are one or two areas that we could tweak and we could sharpen our pencil and be better prepared. Right, so I'd like to preface this conversation, and Dumi, I'm going to hand it over to you shortly to start asking me the questions that you like. But I would like to preface our discussion with three items. I'd like to ask you, first of all, do you understand the language of AI and the effect that algorithms have on that beautiful CV that you've created? When was the last time you updated your CV? Is it still one of those 6 to 12 page long CVs that tells me everything from whether you like spending time walking your dog to whether you play the drums on the weekend and if you are in a good state of health? Because if it's one of those, then the algorithm is going to have a problem picking you up. And I also want to ask you, how well does your LinkedIn profile tie into your CV profile? Oh, Vusi's been called. All right, so how well does your LinkedIn profile marry to your CV? And then And is it reflecting your brand the way that you want to reflect yourself? Because we are brands. We don't just work for organizations. We actually are our own brand. So when you take your name off the business card, can you stand alone as an individual? Because that's important for a board to see. And then my last statement would be, how well and how accurately does that CV and that LinkedIn profile or the information in those two documents, because they're your real estate, how well does that information translate to when you are sitting in front of people, a board of people, a panel of people? How well does that information translate? And is the person on paper the same person or better than the person in the interview room or on the video interview? All right, so I want you to think about those three things when we talk through this process, because it starts with you. You have an idea, you want to apply for a job, and you think, okay, I'm just going to apply for that job. There are a million jobs on LinkedIn. I'm qualified for them. And that's where it begins. But that is not what the process is about. All right. So Dumi, I don't know if you want to dive in here, or if I can just carry on with where I want to get to. What do you want to do?
Maybe you could start out from the beginning. Let's say I, as a director or as an executive, I see a post which I believe that I qualify and it's suitable for me. Where does one start? From from the beginning. How do I start the process?
Good. Okay, happily do that. All right, I want you to understand that the job hunting exercise from an individual's perspective has a life cycle. So you've dusted off your CV, your LinkedIn profile looks good, your photograph on LinkedIn looks like the photograph in your CV if you have one. It's not one taken 6 years ago when you were 20 kilograms lighter or you had pink hair and now today you've got blue hair. All right, so you need to make sure that that person is the same person. In hand, you have your CV, you have your LinkedIn, you have a job advert. All right. Gone are the days of the one-size-fits-all CV. The algorithm is looking for keyword-hungry CVs, and I'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. But let's say you've applied for a vacancy, or Directors has sent you a job link to an advert for a director's post. Where to go to from there? Let's also presuppose that you have gone through the recruitment pre-qualification and selection process, because you've handed your supporting documents, your CV, your qualifications, either to the recruiter, or you have been asked by the organization or the board that is hiring for you to submit supporting documents, because they're going to vet you. All right. They're going to vet your background. They're going to vet your qualifications. They're going to vet your criminal background. So if they don't ask you in the first interview, they will absolutely and very definitely check your fingerprints and ask you to go for a fingerprint clearance assessment. Okay, that's very prevalent these days. There's not a single job that I've placed in the last 5 years where they haven't asked me to do that. So be prepared. All right, so you've made it through, and you have been told by your recruiter, you've been told by the CEO's office, the PA's called you and said, "Hi, Janine, we'd like to set up an interview for you. It's going to be a video interview because you're sitting in Port Elizabeth as the first round, but should you make it through, the second round will be in Johannesburg or Cape Town or wherever the board is going to meet to interview you." So not every single first interaction is going to be in person. And you might find that these interview processes take 2 or 3 interviews, because you could be invited for a first interview, then there's an assessment. If you pass the assessment, then you'll go to a second interview. And if they're happy, they'll get you to meet the entire board. All right, because we've got to be transparent and people have to agree with the appointment. So be prepared for quite a rigorous process. This is not like it used to be where it's 1 or 2 interviews and you get the job and off you go. All right, so in terms of how to think about and anticipate how you might prepare, and I'd like to just share this nugget with you. It takes no less than 10 hours of preparation to make sure that you are in the right mindset, that you have properly prepared for an interview. So if you're wanting to apply for a job, be prepared to do the homework. It's expected of you to do that, especially at this level. All right, you can't wing it or hope that somebody on the board is going to be a friend and will be a marker and will give you an opportunity. All right. So where I would start, you've now been offered the opportunity, you've got a date for your interview, you've put it in your electronic diary, you've put it in your physical diary. Then if it's an organization that you are not currently part of, so if I'm applying for a job with one of the listed companies, I know nothing about them, my first port of call would be to call the CEO's office and to speak to his personal secretary or to somebody that can help me and get information for me. At that point, you can say, look, you've been selected and invited for an interview. You're doing your diligence. You'd like to find out as much as you can about the organization. And at this point, what you're trying to establish is you're trying to get information that is not readily available on the internet. All right. So if I'm researching a company on the internet, I will go to the SENS portal, SENS. It will give you all the listed companies. It will give you their financial statements, their annual financial statements. It will give you the company review. This is the information that is available in the public domain. All right. How well they did last year, how well they did the year before last, what the CFO wrote, what the CEO wrote about the company. You want to be very sure that the company whose door you're knocking on is liquid. You want to be sure that they're not involved in any underhanded operations, that they haven't been in the newspaper for malfeasance or for malpractice or for anything sinister. All right. So from the internet, you can go onto LinkedIn communities. You can look at the company's activity, what their company page is like, what they're writing about, what their mission is. Are they into sustainability, and how does that sustainability impact you if you're applying for a role on the risk committee, you know, or as a non-executive on the nomination committee. So you've got to be quite sure that you're very familiar with what your committee role would be if you want to apply for a specific position, or based on what the information that you receive from the CEO's office, ask for the deeds of trust, ask for the construct of the board. All right. Please, 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 once you know who the board members are, do not go and friend them on LinkedIn. It's not professional. All right. That happens after you're appointed, or when you say thank you for your interview. So if you're going to stalk them in incognito mode, all right, because people can see who's looking at their profiles. So please don't ask to friend them. That's way too familiar, way too soon. All right, there's a protocol at this level. It's not just a bull in a china shop. There's etiquette. All right, so back to the CEO's office. Once you know what the construct of the board is, who are those board members? What are their interests? Does anybody golf? Are they philanthropists? What do they support? You want to know who you're going to be working with on that board, on that future board. And also you're doing it because, like me, I love oil painting, I love hiking, I have a work-life balance outside of my recruitment practice. Find what those soft points are with those individuals, because that is the way to start building relationships and common bonds with people, with strangers. All right. All right. So we've spoken about the SENS report that you can find. An important one to also ask is, you know, they're on the board of a group of companies or a holding company. What does the BEE scorecard look like of the companies within that basket of organizations that this board operates for and on behalf of? You know, you want to be sure that if you are applying for let's say an HR director, you're an African lady and you're applying for a position, you know, then you've got a bit of bargaining power as well, because you bring that BEE element into it. We score extra points on the equity scorecard. Those are plus factors for you to sell yourself to the board on as well. I had a personal experience where there was an opportunity to serve on a board, and I asked them what the gender split was on the board, and I asked them what the equity split was. And if I had gone forward in that process, I would have been the only white female, so I would have been the token appointment. But that's okay. That's okay. I knew it going in. All right. So it works both ways. Find out. Look at product reviews. you know, this board is taking care of various divisions. Look at what, you know, look at the Bidvest board, for instance. There are so many sister companies and divisions there. Are any of those divisions in trouble? Are any of them going through major restructuring? How's that going to affect the organization? Why? Because the reason that you're applying for an executive role is not to look at the operational elements of a business. You know, if you're in a Manco role and you want to step up into a board position or into an executive position, you are moving into a strategic placement in that company, not an operational placement. And I know that I might be speaking to the choir and you guys are aware of this obvious fact, but let that sink in for a moment. Why is it important? Because the board is about strategy. And when you sell yourself in that interview process, when you're busy with your preparation, before you even put your bottom in that seat or before you get online, you should have something called STAR stories. Now, the HR practitioners in the room will know about STAR, STAR, situation, task, action, and result. So I can guarantee you that when you sit down and you've got that board in front of you, they're going to say to you, what do you know about us? And they're going to say to you, why did you apply for this role? And they're going to actually infer what value can you bring to our board? Okay. So those are things to think about. And the way that you answer those sorts of questions or you prepare is you create a situation. Let's use an example. The board has just lost their the leader of the main committee, their nomination committee, and I use this because I'm in the HR space. So it could be that they've lost their risk director, or their IT person has resigned or moved on to another appointment. If I was that person coming in and I'm looking for a director role, I know that the vacancy is there, but I've also done my due diligence to say, okay, but these board members are at 55, they're at 60, they're at 65, or we need an independent director. What does the King Code say about independent? So you're looking at the construct of the board. And I would pitch and I would say, you know what? I want to come in. We need to start looking at what happens if this gentleman retires or this lady moves on or this person on the board has very, very valuable skills. Another board could pick him up very quickly. And it would be the situation that we have is that we are at risk. I need to come up with an activity, a solution to your problem, but this is the action I would take, and this is the result that we could get in the space of the next 18 months. Gee, wouldn't that blow their pip? If I've done that much research and I've really taken an interest and I've already put myself into the shoes of the new incumbent, would that not make them sit up and think, sure, but this person has given this some serious thought, and we actually like that idea, maybe not this idea, but that idea works. Okay. It also fosters conversation in the room because now you've given them something to think about. You might also give them something to think about and they might think, yes, but, and they might fire that question back at you and say to you, okay, we don't have this, but we've got this situation. How do you propose, if you were in these shoes, how would you handle that situation? And then you should have thought of a few possible scenarios of how you could handle a solution that is other than the one that you mentioned. So you've got to think ahead. All right. I just want to cover one more element in terms of the preparation. Articles in the press. That's a very clear indicator of how people are performing and how they are behaving. We all watched the debacle with SAA. We studied it. We watched the debacle with Steinhoff. We studied it when we did our professional directors certification. Be sure that you know what's going on in the market. It also shows that you're informed. All right. And have an opinion about those sorts of things, because you're going to be asked for your opinion when you're sitting around the boardroom table and you're talking strategy. All right. So remember, board position at whichever level, you are looking at strategy 2 to 5 years and then potentially 5 to 10 years. So that would be how I would prepare myself mentally for the interview. And then, as I said, the process again would be that after you've gone through the first interview, you will then be asked to do an online assessment. That's very, very regular and very frequent. You can ask, what sort of assessment will it be? You know, what are you testing, etc., etc. And then hopefully you'll get through to the second interview, the third interview. I want to say something about references here. Please don't just, references must be 2 years or more current. So anybody that worked with you 5 or 6 years ago, they're not really going to be able to vouch for your ability in the here and now. And if COVID taught me anything, CVs need to have a section where they reflect notable achievements and accolades. People want to know how you fix things, what you achieved in the last 2 or 3 years. They're not too concerned about your chronology. They can read that in a CV. They can read that on LinkedIn. They want to know how you're going to impact their operation. All right. So you're going to be interviewed for hard skills, and you're going to be interviewed for soft skills and competencies. Make sure that you know what your hard skills are. If you're in the CFO space and you're looking at a financial portfolio, make sure that your Excel is, if you say it's advanced, please let it be advanced. You know, you need to know how to operate. You might even be tested on it. They might even give you a working interview. You never know. It's happened in Port Elizabeth in the last 2 weeks. We've had that situation where managers have had to go through an interview process, a working interview. And it's frazzled them a little bit. They've come through it with some coaching, but it has been, companies are very, very serious when they make appointments. It's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of investment that goes into the process. All right, so that would be important to remember. Dumisani, I know that we've still got 1 or 2 other items that you want me to touch on, or how are we doing for time? We're still okay?
We're still okay. We're still okay.
Okay. All right, thank you. So just on the point of references, please, POPI Act, do not put your referees' names, numbers, and email addresses on your CV. All right, I was in an HR forum meeting last week, Friday, and the topic came up because I was asking the question about information that is shared. If you have not, and do not put a person on your reference list that you have not asked permission to be a referee for. Okay. As a recruiter, I will ask you who would be the best person that I can get a reference from. I'd like to test your capability in terms of critical thinking and cognitive thinking and complex problems. Who's the best referee that can vouch for you on that? Then you'll give me that person. All right. And as I said, 2 years or nearer to the mark, because they will be able to vouch for what you've done now. All right. So I know that some agencies or some companies say, please include references on the CV. In the current age of POPI, you've got to protect that person's information as well as your own. One thing I want to say to you, just in terms, now that I'm talking about protection of information, obviously, once you get the information from the CEO's office, that is discrete information. You do not walk and share that. I know that many of you know that, but I need to say it. All right. What happens in-house stays in-house. It also tests your level of integrity, confidentiality, and discernment and discretion. All right. Soft skills that are tested. All right. On your CV, there should be a section that shows what your notable achievements are in your field. For instance, during COVID, it took me 2 months to pivot from bricks and mortar to 100% cloud-based, and I took on 4 new staff members. That's an achievement. I did that in 60 days. All right. So from a board perspective, they can see Janine's agile. She's got good technology, good technological skills, and maybe she can bring something like that through. All right. I see there are questions in the chat. Demi, I think we're going to keep those for when I'm finished. Hey?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. I'd like to talk just briefly about, I'm watching the time, briefly about your actual CV document and what it should look like. I'm going to get to that as my last topic, but I just want to talk about social media, photographs, and how you should look in an interview. Okay. And I alluded in jest just now to having a photograph on your CV that was taken 5 years ago and you had pink hair and now you've got brown hair, whatever the case may be. When you do your research on the organization, and bearing in mind that you're going to be in a boardroom or you're going to be part of a manco, the word uniform, we all think of a uniform like a school uniform, but it's actually got a bit more gravity than just wearing a uniform. And maybe this is the kind of thing you can ask the recruiter when you're working with the placement agency or the headhunter, you know, dress code for my interview. I'm going to be on a Teams call or a Zoom call. We've all seen these horrible social media video clips that go viral where you dressed from the top up and then you stand up and you're in your slippers and your pantoffels. You know, it happens. Please don't let it happen to you. When you are going for an interview at an advertising agency, you're not going to go dressed like a banker. All right. Maybe you do have a tattoo or you've got some piercings. Please, you're applying for a board role or a senior role. Tone it down. Tone it down until you get a feeling of the vibe of the organization. All right. Till you felt the temperature in the room. And then you can maybe, when you are working, and if you come to one of the meetings and you've got a tattoo showing or you're wearing a piercing, that's fine. We're not all prudes, but there's a time and a place for everything. General attire, gentleman, is a suit with a collared shirt, and that would be for board meetings. If you're coming for an interview, gents, I would wear a nice suit. I would find out if a tie is necessary. I'd probably have one in my briefcase, depending on if you're in financial services or working in the healthcare industry. If you're in construction and a puffer jacket is what everybody else is wearing and it's branded, well then, you know, go for that. Uniform, unified form. What are they doing? I should mimic that. You know, you want to look similar to them, not be the same as them. We don't want a photostat of everybody else. They're hiring you for your individuality and for what you can bring and a breath of fresh air, but assess it. Ladies, I could talk forever on this one. Always cover up, no strappy tops. Keep the sequins for nighttime and cocktail parties, okay? Classical, nice pearls perhaps in your ears, makeup nice understated. Remember your photograph, if you are selected for the board, your photograph is going to be on the About Us page or the directory of that organization. Make sure that you are always beautifully presented. And this is where I want to go to the social media. As a recruiter, if I get a name for a vacancy and I'm starting to do my research on a candidate, the first place I look is LinkedIn. The second place I look is Facebook and Instagram. Clean up your profiles. Clean them up. Have a professional profile for work if that's where you want to play on LinkedIn. Keep your social for Instagram or for Facebook. There you can have more relaxed photographs. Take the beer out of your hand, take the wine glass out of your hand. Make sure that there are no photographs that you are going to be embarrassed about, because let me tell you, I've seen horrific photographs and it's put me off. And my client has asked me to do the social media checks because they don't want people of ill repute in their organizations. Okay, so just be clear, I'm not saying don't have a social life by all means, but pick where you take your selfies and pick who's in the background, pick what they're doing. You know, make sure those photo bombers are not doing stupid things. We look at that. I just want to close off by sharing the last of the profile. So once you've been offered, and make sure that all your, before you go into the interview process, it helps the recruiter or it helps the organization that's going to onboard you so much. If you have a folder of all your supporting documents in PDF, please. All right, then nobody can play with your information. So PDF all your documents, but don't bunch them together in one massive document. Separate PDF for ID, separate PDF for all those individual documents, because you are going to be asked to send them. And you don't want to be scrambling at number 99 just before the appointment's done, and suddenly you don't have something that you need because you didn't you didn't verify your own documents and get your house in order. All right, that also speaks to your lack of attention to detail, and they want somebody that pays attention to detail. All right, so we've spoken about appearance, we've spoken about the research, we've spoken about interviews, structure of your CV, broad lines. And this is where I think if you've got an old dusty CV, you need to invest in yourself. You know, you're investing in yourself when you subscribing to documentaries on Netflix or you're paying your premium on LinkedIn. Pay the extra money for somebody who can actually structure that CV properly. What happens with the algorithm is that whoever's posting the job advert has created certain keywords in the text of that job spec. Your CV, if I can use my hands, if this is your CV and this is the job spec, you want the two to marry. If there's a mismatch, you don't get selected. That algorithm, that language that is being spoken by the tracking system, by LinkedIn, by whichever portal is being used, cannot pick you up if you have got text that is not keyword rich. And please, every executive CV at this point in our lives needs to have an executive summary of 4 or 5 lines in your top paragraph. Okay. If you're going to include your LinkedIn link, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Otherwise, leave it off until you've done that homework. Okay, because there's nothing worse than seeing 2 disparate profiles. It makes me question how serious you are. All right. And LinkedIn is our window. That's where we go and shop as executive recruiters. Okay, I like to go there first. And I know that my colleagues in the industry do the same thing. All right. So your CV is, your top 1/3 of your CV is very important. The applicant tracking system doesn't pick up a photograph. All right. It's nice to have a photograph on. If you've got a really solid corporate photograph and you feel confident and it looks good, I don't need your whole body shot and I certainly don't need a selfie pose. All I need is head and shoulders from here like this in a square format. All right. Use it or lose it. That's personal preference. I like to include a photograph. Because when the security guard sees me coming and the receptionist has said, we're expecting Janine for an interview, he already knows who I am. And that's a very important point. When you walk through those glass doors of whichever organization you are interviewing for, treat the security guard, the receptionist, the cleaner, everybody with respect, because they are what we call gatekeepers. You don't know whether that board has posted them to do an assessment on you. Okay, so treat them with respect. Greet them on the way in, on the way out, wish them a happy day. People are watching you. They watch you through the CCTV cameras before you even entered the building. And they watch your behavior and how you treat people and what you're doing. So please don't pick your teeth and, go to the bathroom and do that where there aren't CCTVs. I know I'm joking about it, but it happens. All right. Just last thing on the interview, on the CV, 2 to 3 pages max. All right. I've got 27 years experience. My CV is 2.5 pages long. It takes skill to truncate and shorten a CV without losing skills, without losing competencies, without losing keywords, and without losing detail. Qualitative and quantitative detail in your CV. That's how the system will pick you up. And that's how the reader will know what you can do. And a recruiter's got 7 seconds to assess, 7 to 10 seconds to assess your CV. I know just looking at a CV whether I'm going to work with it or not. All right. Because I've got 200 candidates who need to be screened. So I haven't got time for fluff. And I know it sounds harsh, but that's the reality of our job. I know when I'm recruiting for a board, I might not have 200 CVs. I might have 30, but it takes me time. I want to leave you with this one last statement. 10 hours. That is the average amount of prep time that it takes if you want to be well informed, well prepared, and you want to make the right impression. That's the homework you have to put in. All right. I hope you've got some information that you can work with.
Thank you very much. We've got some questions.
All right.
We have one. You can also raise your hand. You can also type on our chat. Okay, I'll start with the one from the chat. It's Pelma Pumulo. She says, in light of the POPI Act, how does one then include reference in CV contact details? Perhaps I did not understand.
Art of winning an interview. The art of winning an interview.
Sorry, I've got somebody else talking. I don't
okay,
understand the question.
Okay, let me repeat the question from Pearl. She said, in light of the POPI Act, how does one then include referees on the CV contact?
Okay, Pearl, I would refrain from including the reference on the CV. When your CV is screened, so if I was screening your CV, I would say, oh, I like Pearl. I see something that I can work with here. I will get in contact with you, either electronically on email or I will phone you. And I will then set up a pre-screening interview with you. And at that point, I will ask you, Pearl, I need 3 references, please. Phone number, email address, designation of the individual. I would also ask you then, please, could you contact your referees, just double check the information that you're going to give me. Give them the heads up that I will be calling them, and I'm calling them to reference check you because you are applying for a job, this kind of job. So you've opened the door for me. I would keep the references off, and when they are requested, I would then send them, because then you can decide who you want to include. All right.
Fantastic.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then Ntombi
Yes, thank you very much.
Is it compulsory to have a professional photo on your CV?
No, not compulsory. As I said a little bit earlier, that's up to you. In my professional practice, I include CVs photographs on the CV, but they are going to my client, who's the hiring organization. So I like it. It separates you from the other pieces of paper that don't have a personality. All right. So it's not about whether you're pretty or beautiful or whatnot, but don't give me a glamour photo. Don't give me a glamour photo on your CV. It just needs to be. Oh, sorry, there's some interference again. I hope you can hear me. To answer your question, up to you, Ntombi. I like it. You could also, and once again, it's not a one size fits all. You know, if you feel that you don't want to put your photograph on that CV, there's nothing wrong with you leaving it off. We have enough other markers on our CV that show that we're an African female or a white female, or where we were born, or what year we matriculated. If I take 18 years onto your ID number, I can work out how old you are, you know. So it's up to you.
Thank you. I saw Ritabile, you had your hand up. I'll give you, you can take the podium and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. On the CV build-up, could we perhaps have, or do you perhaps have the list of organizations and maybe individuals that could help us build up an executive a CV that is responsive and that is more or less compliant with the qualities that have been detailed during the presentations? And if the answer is yes, could we at the end of this session have a list of them so that maybe we make a direct contact with them? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Ritabile. I'm going to let Dumisani answer that. I think in the close, he and I did discuss that. And yes, there are many CV writers. The cost varies. Do your research on them. Have a look at what they offer you. For instance, in my service, I offer you a 1-hour face-to-face consult because I need to understand you. I'm not a butchery. I don't trade in pieces of meat. I trade in individuals and humans that have got an expectation. All right. So if you are going to work with a CV writer, make sure that part of what you're covering in terms of your cost involves a face-to-face interview so that they can take notes. They can gather from your background the things that aren't spoken about in your CV, what your achievements were, you know, what the stakeholder engagement levels were that you've had, because that's the gold that goes into your CV, that when the HR director or the chairman of the board or the head of the nomination committee is looking at when they want to make appointments, that's the stuff that's going to be different. And you have to include that, but there's a way to do it. So yes, Dumisani will guide you on that just before we finish. Okay.
And sorry, just a follow-up. You
Sure.
did mention about an 1-hour face-to-face. Does what Dumisani to offer at the end include you? Maybe I should be specific.
Yes.
Perhaps I want to continue with Wikimedia. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we are definitely gonna address this. So tomorrow we will send a survey to everyone who is registered, and then we're gonna compile a list of all the individuals that wants their CV to be elevated, and also who want maybe a one-to-one coaching. Of course, we'll be Directors Association will be working in hand with Janine. So yes, your question is answered, Ritabile. So you're in good hands.
Can I just also add in there what your CV writer should also do for you, or you should look at an additional service, because there's a cost to certain things. You're taking their time, you're taking their expertise, they're plowing that back into you. If you're not happy with your LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn doesn't allow a third party to play in your profile. So nobody else can play in my profile. I'm the only one that can make amendments to my profile. All right. It's illegal to get somebody else to log in as if they were you and change the profile. You need to do it yourself. So CV writers sometimes offer the additional service of a LinkedIn review. And that would be something like a 30-minute review of your existing profile. I would then say to Ritabile, you need to go and change this, or you need to think of content with this and this and this, but we can pull it from your CV, and then we'll get back onto another 30-minute consult. You will share your LinkedIn screen with me so that I can see what you've got, and I'll tell you what to place there, and the importance of your skills, your endorsements, asking for recommendations. Gosh, that is such a free and easy win on a LinkedIn profile, asking for an endorsement and asking for recommendation. It supports your application. It shows that people like to work with you. It's a little bit of a mini testimonial, and people just don't see the value. They don't use it, and it's absolutely invaluable on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, but that's also part of the consult and the coaching with somebody that offers this kind of service. If they don't have it, then find somebody that does. Okay.
Fantastic. Zanele Sitenjo, I'm going to give you the podium. You can ask your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Janine, for this impactful session. I just wanted to ask, on placing a picture on the CV, where would you suggest the picture should be? On the left of the page or in the middle? And also, does, when there's the circle frame or the square frame, would one need to also be very careful on what type of a frame would they use to put the picture there?
You know what? In my practice, I put it top left, because in South Africa, we read from left to right, and we read across, down, like that. So left, top corner, left. Certainly not in the middle. You're wasting all that space. Okay. Left. And if you want to keep your CV to 2 or 3 pages, you've got to economize on space. Circle, square, doesn't make a difference. Size of the photograph, I would say 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. That's big enough. Okay. And make sure that, and you really don't, with the technology we have on our cell phones these days, you really don't need to go to a professional photographer and take 30 shots and choose the best one. If you've got a nice phone with a good camera, make sure that just fit it in this space, so that there's space at the side of your head, so that and you haven't got photo frames behind you, or you're sitting behind a window or a tree. Sometimes we've got things sticking out of it's not professional. I find the back of the bathroom door is the best place, because it's usually white. Okay. All right. And then it just showcases you, and please smile. Let that smile hit your eyes. Okay. We don't want any smile photos. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One last question. Do you get a lot of requests, or maybe I don't know how to put it, between having, you said the first part of your CV should have like 5 lines of your summary, and then one would also have to have a cover letter. So when crafting the CV, does one have to make what I put on the cover letter should maybe not be repeated on the summary.
You're correct.
Would you
Okay.
say it should be like that?
Yes. So in your cover letter,
Yes.
remember you are directing a letter, you write a letter to somebody. Okay.
Yes.
And on that note, CV's not in first person. No I.
Yes.
Okay. It's what's called the passive first person. So it's not they or Janine did this. You don't use a name, you don't use I. You write in third person or passive first person. Okay.
Yes.
If you use the word I, all I'm getting is I did this, I did that. Ego, I. Okay. That's how it shouts across. Your cover letter is directed to somebody. So
Okay.
if you are not going through a recruitment firm, if you are going directly to an organization, if you're going to directors and you're not sure who to direct it to, you could write to the hiring manager.
Yes.
Right? And you're writing because you're applying for a specific position. So you would have had foundation experience in that role before. You've been an HR director on a board before. They need an HR director or they need an IT, somebody in IT or somebody supply chain or operations to fulfill that function on the board. You're writing the letter to somebody where you're saying you've got 15 years working in the HR operational space at management leadership team level, and you're applying for the executive role because you've had experience in pivoting organizations. Your most recent project was taking the organization through the post-COVID staff retention or onboarding or return to work project. Because you now know, you've already done your research. You know that they're struggling with getting people to come back to work. So you speak to that and you say, I've had extensive experience, or I've partnered with the board at a previous organization in the construction industry in getting their office staff to return to work. I feel I have value to add to your organization. That's just one of the projects I've been involved with. I look forward to hearing from you. Short, 2 paragraphs.
Short. All right. Thank you so much.
Use the F7 key. Do your spell checks. Spell checks. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And one last thing just about CV writing and cover letters. Please don't be so bold as to take your whole CV and put it into ChatGPT or into one of the open source GPTs and say, summarize my CV, and then come out with a 2-pager. The minute you put your ID number, your phone number, your residence, your email address onto that GPT, you are putting it into the ethers. It is not protected. There's not enough legislation protecting your identity if you are using ChatGPT and AI. So for those of you who thought you could short circuit this and put your CV into ChatGPT and let them recreate a CV for you like that, please, 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 please don't do that. It's so dangerous. You're putting yourself at risk. The hackers are very smart. Okay.
Thank you, Janine. We've got Kabo. He said, how does one efficiently customize the CV for various roles without having to rewrite the CVs for every role? Where does the cover letter fit in?
Okay, I think I spoke about the cover letter, so I'm going to talk about having a master CV versus other CVs. I have 5 different derivatives of my own CV. All right. So sorry, I missed the person's name that asked the question. What I would do, Kabo, yes. I would have a master document. I would have a master CV, and I would call it that, Janine Dickey Master CV. And in it, I would take I'm in HR, so I'm going to speak to HR. I've got talent acquisition. I've got business development. I've got various pillars within my skill set. So can I just ask what sector is the person in that's asking the question?
It's not specified.
Sorry, I don't see my raised hand, so I'm sorry. I just have to.
And no problem.
In IT assurance and governance and risk.
Okay,
so
that helps.
IT governance and risk, yes.
All right, so you can potentially apply for jobs in 3 different streams or 3 different verticals. So if you're applying, so I have a master document that has my IT skills listed, has my governance and compliance listed, has my risk listed, and anything else, special projects. Okay, so that's my master, saved as Janine Dickey Master. when I see a job spec, and once again, I'm going to do this with my hands. The job that I'm applying for has various requirements. I need to shadow match my CV to match that job spec. So I'm slanting my CV to read towards the skill set that is asked for in the job description. So it starts with that job advert. All right. If you're applying for a compliance position, then in that master CV where you've got your compliance section, I would pull that section to the top and I would read that first. And then I would also not leave off the IT or the other responsibilities, but I would play them down. And I would save that CV, Janine Dickey compliance application. So then, and I'd say July 2024. Then I know what I'm working with. So keep a folder of all your own CVs. If you're applying for an IT job and you're now doing software development, or you're looking at risk mitigation in terms of software platforms or software performance, I would then push up the software quotient. And I would make sure that when I state what my notable achievements and accolades are, I would list a few projects that I was involved with, and what the project, once again, your star story. Situation was X, tasks and action were this, and results were this. I saved my organization 5 million rand by integrating this or this over a period of 12 months. That's what people want to read.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Janine. Tagaja, I'm going to give you the podium. You can ask your question.
Okay, thanks, Janine. No, thanks. If you've been out of the market, say for 5 years, and you were self-employed, and you decide, to have appetite again to go back, and you apply, can you use your involvement as a self-employed individual as a reference, or your latest activism in the ecosystem, and obviously you will be your own reference in that regard? Is that allowable? And the second one, what about it's now more than 2 years, the 2 years that you mentioned that you can use, your references. Are you now going to forfeit, because you've been out of the market for 5 years, you can use your last job's referees that will be relevant now? 1, 2, is it necessary really to have a social media profile like LinkedIn, and all that? And what if you are not really into social media space, and will that shorten your chances, when there's due diligence done, that you cannot be cross-referenced, on the social media? Thank you.
Okay. Let me answer your second question first. You don't have to have a social media preference. I know some people are very cautious and concerned about their privacy, and you're absolutely entitled to that. It just makes it a little bit more difficult for us to find you. All right. So often organizations will say to me, Janine, go and headhunt somebody. Now, headhunting is a direct action. I need to go somewhere to find somebody who is not necessarily looking for a position at the moment. Okay. So if you're not on LinkedIn, and I don't advocate that you have a profile on all the other things. Some of us, our age, I'm in my 50s, I'm tired of LinkedIn, I'm tired of Instagram. I'm tired of Facebook and Instagram. I only want to use my LinkedIn, and it's purely for business or for sharing valuable content like now. I would urge you to have something on LinkedIn, because then at least people know something about you. It's equally alarming when people say, but there's nothing on this person. Do they actually exist? All right. So there are counter arguments there. The ball's in your court. Okay, whatever you feel comfortable with. In terms of the referencing, I've been in my own business for 25 years. All right. My references are possibly a peer who I don't have any, because my ex-partner is sitting in the UK and she hasn't worked with me for 10 years. So I can't really use her for that reference. But you would have had people that you interacted with on a daily basis in your business. They could be suppliers, they could be your bank manager, they could be your auditor, they could be your IT person. All those people can advocate for you in a different way. So you do have references. Okay. To answer the question about using your business in your CV, it's very important to reflect your employment history accurately. And I don't just mean that Janine worked for Investec from 1998 to 2001. I did, but I worked from the end of 98 to the start of 2001. So it's not 3 years that I worked for Investec. It was closer to 20 months. Big difference. So make sure that your CV reflects the month and the year of your commencement and the month and the year of your termination of that tenure. Where people like us have worked in our own business, our own consulting business, absolutely. We've run businesses, we've developed skills in terms of business analysis, business processes. So there your CV might look a little bit different from the normal CV of a corporate person who's got, you know, regular employment, and it shows like that in the employment summary. And when it's showed in that CV, it's in reverse chronological order. So it's most recent to the most historical being the last one. Please don't start with what you did after high school. Okay. You start with where you've worked most recently. So in our instance, it would be our businesses that we were working in. And we had responsibilities. We did overall management responsibility. We were the managing director of our organization. So we had an operational, but also, and a functional, but also a strategic and a legal obligation under our business. Those are the skills that you would put in your summary of skills or competencies, and you would also allude to that in your personal summary at the top of your CV. Okay. So just because we've been out in the Maya and we haven't been in corporate industry doesn't mean we don't count. We absolutely count. But you'd bring in those functional skills into your CV so that people read you in a different way. And I hope I'm answering your question and making you feel a little bit more at ease.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Good. Good.
All right, thank you very much, Janine. I'm gonna have to call it off, ladies and gentlemen, because of time. But definitely, Janine, she's also part of the association. She's also a member. So tomorrow we'll send out a survey for all of those that are interested in the services of their CV being elevated, also to being assisted with their LinkedIn, and then we'll take it from there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Yes, we will definitely have more of these masterclass on different topics, on different areas, which we believe would be very, very helpful to you guys. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Chat to you guys soon. Thank you very much, Janine, for your time and your hours you've invested preparing for this session. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your effort and your contribution to the association. And thank you.
Thank you, Dumisani. I had a wonderful time with all of you. Thank you for spending this hour and investing in your time. For those of you who are just looking for some information and a place to start, you're welcome to go to my website. There are lots of blog articles there that speak specifically to executive search, how to apply, where to apply, why it's important, and what executive search is about. That's free content in the public domain. Go and have a read. It might be worthwhile for you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.